शबीर से बाकी दीन नबी, शबीर से बाकी पैगंबर, शबीर से बाकी पैगंबर, शबीर रहे जिंदा जिससे ज़ैनब ऐसी हस्ती है। कुनबे की हिफाजत भी करना, दरबार में खुतबे भी देना, दरबार में खुतबे भी देना। इस वस्फ में है मां से आगे ज़ैनब ऐसी हस्ती है। खैमों की हिफाजत की खातिर टूटा हुआ एक नेज़ा लेकर टूटा हुआ एक नेज़ा लेकर जो शाम गरीबा पहरा दे, ज़ैनब ऐसी हस्ती है। ढारस है माँ में दौरा को, ज़ैनब सा हाफिज साथ में है, ज़ैनब सा निगहबान साथ में है। अब्बास कभी शबीर बने, ज़ैनब ऐसी हस्ती है। सरवर के लिए दीन की खातिर जो बार दिए उन बेटों का, जो बार दिए उन बेटों का, हम ही न करे पुरसा भी न ले, ज़ैनब ऐसी हस्ती है। बेपरदज से उम्मत ने किया और अपने तई रुसवा किया। जो उम्मतियों का पर्दा रखे, ज़ैनब ऐसी हस्ती है। हर चंद हुई तशहीर उसकी, बाजारों में दरबारों में, बाजारों में दरबारों में, चेहरे को छुपाया बालों से, ज़ैनब ऐसी हस्ती है। गो हाथ पसे गर्दन को बंधे, और कहने को कैदी हो फिर भी, कहने को कैदी हो फिर भी, जो गिरते हुओं को सहारा दे, ज़ैनब ऐसी हस्ती है। मुख्तार है वो मजबूर नहीं, चाहे तो बदल दे एक पल में, चाहे तो बदल दे पल भर में। हालात जो सिबते जाफर के, ज़ैनब ऐसी हस्ती है। जो ज़ेरे किसा पर मान चढ़े, ज़ैनब ऐसी हस्ती है। उस्ताद शहीद उस्ताद सत्य जाकर के लिए जो मेरे उस्ताद हैं, उनको 10 साल हो गए उनकी शहादत को। इस साल आप लोगों से गुजारिश है कि उनके लिए फातिहा पढ़ें। फातिहा।
सलावत।
बारे दीगर सलावत।
औज़ु बिल्लाहि समीउल अलीम मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। औज़ु बिल्लाहि समीउल अलीम मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। इक़रा बिस्मि रब्बिकल लज़ी खलक़ खलक़ल इंसान मिन अलक़ इक़रा व रब्बुकल अकरम अल्लज़ी अल्लमा बिल क़लम अल्लमल इंसान मा लम यअलम सदक़ल्लाहुल अज़ीम। सल्लल्लाहु living beautifully in the path of the elephant. We have chosen as our theme this idea of a beautiful life, a life worth living, a purpose worth living for. Thinking, reflecting on an almost total collapse as we see in our daily lives, in our daily culture, an almost total collapse of courtesy, good manners, adab, of a gentleness. There seems to be something basic missing, which immediately strikes us the moment we step out of our comfort zones, we step out of our borders, go to another country, another land, another climate, another culture, and we are struck by a daily courtesy, a style of gentleness, of smiles, of welcome, of decency that we seem to not find in our culture. And this is something that pains every sensible citizen and person in our society. So, therefore, we have chosen the noblest possible lives to be able to share some reflections, thinking, what is it that these people most wanted? What is it that the Panjatan Park most wanted? And if there's anything, there are many answers to that, of course, but if there is anything, perhaps one might say in nobility, in daily living. Perhaps that would be a humble answer. All that they wanted was simply in nobility in daily life for themselves and everyone who came in mind. So, today we have offered on the first day a map of the way these talks would go. And it is for me an honor and a privilege, an enormous gratitude for your regard, for the way in which the feedback I'm receiving from around the world, that perhaps some of these intelligent efforts, some of these intellectual efforts are striking a chord. I said there are three images. Let me take a moment to explore them, define them, and that will give us the entry point to the particular theme for today. Three things make executive function its basic core. First, being able to remember information, being able to remember, recall. Surely that is obvious. Being able to hold some facts in the mind, being able to hold what happened a few minutes ago and connect it to what happened now or what is happening. To remember what happened yesterday and then to connect it to today. To be able to remember, if you are reading a story, something fiction, to be able to remember the elements of the plot, to be able to connect with the consequences that happen later. If one did not do that, there would be no fiction. There would be no novels. There would be no stories. For what story is built? Or rather, what story can possibly exist without building on a few facts remembered and a few facts which you are able to hold in the mind long enough to be able to connect? First, memory. A basic memory of recall of information. First. Second, flexibility, a mental flexibility. The example that comes from scholars who study executive function, they say, consider a child putting together a jigsaw puzzle. And the child doesn't quite see it. 4-year-old sees a piece and jams it into place, tries to jam it into place and doesn't fit. And now you see a frustration building. Flexibility is being able to persevere with a task long enough to finish it and yet be flexible enough to know that sometimes it won't happen. It is possible a piece is missing. It is possible that what you are trying to do cannot be done. There's something which was not in your control. Somebody has put that piece aside. Something has gone wrong. Mental flexibility of being able to know, in the words of Guy Eaton, how far will you allow a child to run behind a butterfly if the ground is known to have quicksand? अगर जमीन में दलदल का इम्कान है तो कितनी देर तक आप बच्चे को इजाजत देंगे कि वो उस बटरफ्लाई के पीछे जाए? कितनी देर तक इजाजत? कब आप कहेंगे no, the danger is not worth it, the butterfly is not worth it? When will you draw the line? Mental flexibility of being able to know when to stop, although you know that perseverance is a huge thing and that is what allows you to solve problems in mathematics, and that is what allows great inventions to happen, the kind of cussedness it takes for a scientist to be at it after hours after hours after hours to take a side of a cell and to be able to chop it into half with the kinds of tools that are needed under an electron microscope. I mean, these are things that need enormous consistency. And yet, when do you know when to stop? Mental flexibility. Ability to persevere connected with the ability to stop, to be flexible. With a new set of circumstances, a new reality. Two. And third, and I think the third one, by in and of itself, makes us recognize what executive function is: self-control, or even better, self-regulation. I think the pandemic has taught us something remarkable. The pandemic has taught us the true value of self-regulation. An educationist whom I admire a lot has pointed this out. He says to teachers, the pandemic has pointed out that the real issue is not the student whom you are worried about. The real problem is the smart student. The real problem is the one who gets the marks, who solves the problems, who does everything. There's something wrong about that child. Say what? And he explains, be careful, he's the nerd. He's the obedient one. He's the one who only does what the teacher tells him to do. Be careful. This child may get all the marks, but he's actually learned how to play the school game well. He knows how to pass exams. He knows how to play the game. He knows how to be obedient. So when the pandemic comes and the teacher steps out of his life, so does learning come to an end in his. It is the child who is able to self-regulate. It is the child who is able to say to mom and dad, don't bother me for an hour now. I'm practicing my maths now. There's no teacher there, but the child knows that that discipline must be put in. There, executive function, self-control, self-regulation. Three. These three together form executive function. Along with that, there are consequences. Now, why did I have all this detail? What was I doing? Friends, the real onus of developing executive function belongs to mothers, belongs to women, belongs to womanhood. And this then is the key, the entry point to which I begin our exploration of the three noblest women whom we shall have the honor to remember. Sayyida Khadija Kubra, Sayyida Fatima Zahra, Sayyida Zainab bint Ali. Salam alayha. Salam. Yes, it is true, both father and mother have a role in developing executive function. We know that. But over the first 2 years, over the first 2.5 years, nothing quite like the attention of the mother in developing the executive function. It is the mother who provides the language. It is the mother who provides the language of the self-talk by which a child regulates his own behavior. It is the mother who teaches self-control and teaches stop beyond the point of danger. It is the mother who knows that the toddler manages or knows how to get into trouble. It is we know about this, baby-proofing the home. We know that the 2-year-old is incredibly capable of getting himself into danger, hurt, if not worse. Then after that, the toddler just goes about everywhere and manages to pull down and touch and grab and grasp and pull just about everything. It is the mother who teaches perseverance, and it is the mother who teaches limits. Finally, We all know this. Whenever, whoever has narrated a story to a child over a few days, it is amazing that children want the repeated story, the same exact story. You dare not change a single detail. They want it exactly the same. नहीं नहीं वो वाली कहानी सुना वो अच्छा अरे भाई वो तुम्हें रोज सुनाते आज में तुम्हें नहीं नहीं वो and then the moment you change any single detail or something they say no ऐसे नहीं हुआ था ऐसे हुआ. There is something remarkable about the way in which they are building the database of information and recall. This is the duties of mother. And our salams on all mothers, past and present, future. Our salams on all mothers, because it is womanhood who actually carries civilization forward. There's a sarcastic remark made by a modern Sufi master who, when he sent one of his disciples to a particular community in the United States, he says, in any gathering that you address, remember this, it is the women who will take your message forward. And he said, sir, what do you mean? He said, the men are distracted. The men are distracted. Okay, I know. They are all very attentive here. Generally, it is the women who take this. That's because executive function works under their hands. So it's a civilizational thing, it's a generational thing. It will be my honor and privilege to remember three great moments from the lives of the three great women I just mentioned. Sayyida Khadijatul Kubra. This noble woman, so many images, so many. Here is an accomplished Arab woman who knew her own mind extremely well. She knew what she wanted out of life. And if recent research into Arab society of the time has shown, she had come upon, in the words of Ammar Nasrani, a person who has a pungent sense of humor. He goes that recent research has shown that her husband, who passed away, had bequeathed her an entire FedEx business. And you pause and what? An entire cargo business. A way by which Sayyida Khadijatul Kubra was in charge of managing the cargo and the information of the cargo. FedEx, we can't have a better metaphor than that. And that gave her enormous riches. Suddenly just they as it were, came into her lap. And that was the time when she had noticed a young Muhammad, and not at that time, he was only 25 years old, creating a fine reputation about himself as a person given to integrity and honor. And so it was that she finally hired him and said, I want you to take some of these goods unto Syria, Damascus, and back. And throughout that time, she had a servant, one of her slaves, watch the behavior of this particular young man. When she asked for his report, what did you see? He said, here is someone who was not given to duplicity, who was not given to double talk, who didn't want to make a profit if the goods were defective. In fact, he announced the defect straight away, and that created such integrity that he earned, because of that integrity, even more reputation, and therefore even more. Sayyida Khadijatul Kubra, given that society, given that tribal world, proposed marriage. And the prophet-to-be was for a moment surprised, so we are told. I have no wherewithal, what would I do? And she says, I have enough for you. I have enough. Khadijatul, the successful, accomplished businesswoman who knew her mind. And then the moment I want to remember is, we will need to have two moments here. Around the age of 30, the Prophet had visited the fair of the Uqas, a huge mela that took place every 2 years in Jeddah. He was a regular visitor there. We know from his travels that he had traveled the length and breadth of the Arab Peninsula and knew of the comings and goings. I am convinced that it was in the fair of Uqas in Jeddah during the age from age 30 to 40, prior to prophethood, that it was there that he had seen some Chinese people open up a stall with their goods. I am convinced that he knew them well. He knew their products well. He knew the artistry and the ivory and the other things that they might have brought for sale over there. He knew that. He also knew that they had a system of notation, of writing. I'm convinced much later when he would say that famous sentence, seek knowledge even unto China, he meant something direct. He had seen Chinese elegance prior to prophethood. And so therefore when he mentioned it, it wasn't just a random far-off place that he mentioned, but a place that he knew of and knew about. Another time, these are moments of history that are pixels in the magnificent life. Around the age of 35, a discontent set in him. He observed society and its incredible waste, the waste of potential and the waste of time. He saw men and women fighting, kabhi pani peene pilane pe jhagda, kabhi ghoda aage badhane pe jhagda, as Ali puts it. He saw people with a frivolous time frame, frivolous purposes. He saw tribal lifestyle in which people were fighting, people of one tribe were fighting people of another tribe. But if you asked any one person, what was the reason? They said, oh, we forgot that because that was long ago. Whatever it was, we forgot. But the fight continued. These guys are on that kind of madness. Around the age of 35, he began retreats. And he would spend a month away from the city. Imagine what kind of a sound of bustle Makkah would have been prior to the industrial age, prior to technology, prior to the engines and the machines. And yet, he was given to going to Ghar Hira and meditate and think. Professor Qarar Hussain captures this moment extremely well. बेटा कभी उस शख्स के अपने माशरे, अपने मुस्तकबिल, इंसान की हैयत, उसकी वजूद, उसका मकसद के सवाल की शिद्दत के बारे में गौर तो करो। किस शिद्दत से उस शख्स ने वो सवाल पूछा होगा कि आसमान से फरिश्ते ने आके जवाब देना शुरू किया। What intensity must have been the Prophet's level of worry? What will happen? What are my people on about? Someone else in another context said a very fine thing in understanding. He said, कभी गौर तो करें हम नबी करीम की अज़मत को कि उन्होंने ये नहीं कहा कि काबा में 360 बुत हैं तो बनु हाशिम का एक मेरा खास हुआ करेगा। उन्होंने ये भी नहीं कहा कि मैं कुरैश के लोगों का एक एक्स्ट्रा बुत बनाता हूं और तुम लोग सब उसके लिए आ जाओ। उन्होंने ये भी नहीं कहा कि मैं तमाम अरब लोगों के लिए एक बुत बनाता हूं और मैं उस कबीलों को कंट्रोल में लेता हूं। ये नबी का मैसेज ही कुछ और। None of them. La ilaha, none of them. ये तो फिर से पता चलता कि it wasn't him personally, it was him being told to do something. And so that is why I recited the very first revelation. In that age, from 35 to 40, when the Prophet would retire for a month, in the month of Ramzan, sometimes young Ali would be with him, sometimes Khadija would be with him, sometimes the slave girl of Khadija would bring the food with her to put on the Prophet's cave outside when he would partake of it later. There would be, we have no way of knowing what that lifestyle was. There would be fasts, there would be vigils, there would be thinking. The only Arabic word used for that time is the word tahannus. The only translation of that is deep thinking. Deep thinking. That's what the Prophet doing. That's what the Prophet was doing in Ghaib. During that time, he had seen the poets. He had seen the kahin, a particular word. In Arab culture and society, there were these people who were given to fits, and they would froth in the mouth and fall on the floor. And at that time, when they would be in that state, they would utter something. People would gather around them and quickly listen and jot it down or remember it. Sometimes it would be rhyming prose. Most times it would be gibberish, as you can well imagine. The Prophet announced at that time that he had nothing to do with them. He had nothing to do with the kahins, he had nothing to do with the poets. And later we would read. And at the age of 40, as we know, the great moment, he has the first revelation. That revelation is an experience that is just totally beyond any experience that he could have had. Only Guy Eaton explains it, only in the presence of great natural disasters, only in the presence of a volcano erupting, an earthquake happening, or a great tornado happening before our eyes, can we imagine the great terror of nature when our helplessness is total. With such metaphors, can we imagine what the experience of the angel must have been like for the first time. It was such almost enough to unhinge the rationality of a person. It was enough to make him almost doubt every sensation and everything he had. And so therefore, after the first revelation, the one woman, the one voice, the one heart, the one person who took him in her arms and consoled him was Sayyidah Khadija al-Kubra. Our salams on al-Mu'mineen Khadija al-Kubra. He expressed his surprise and amongst the moments as a person who has gone through a tremendous experience, or to use the English word in its original meaning, awful. Today it is awesome, but I know what awesome means. So the true meaning of the word awful today is just turned into something negative. The original meaning is great, full of awe, A-W-E, full of awe. At that moment of enormous nervousness, the Prophet said, I'm afraid I might be amongst those possessed. And the Prophet and Sayyidah Khadija al-Kubra's words that come down to us are, no, it can't be. It can't be. Are you not gentle to the orphan? Are you not enormously generous to the widow? Do you not look after the people who are in pain and in need? Do you not look after everyone who asks you for anything? How is it possible that with your upright stature and perfect behavior, an evil, demonic being would come to you? How is it possible? This is Sayyidah Khadija's greatness. She had not seen Jibreel. She had not seen the angel. She had seen her husband. She had seen the Prophet. And she knew that such a man would not be assailed by an evil, demonic being, but by something else. And so it was. She took him to her cousin, Waraka bin Nawfal. Waraka bin Nawfal, once again, a man who was aware of the scriptures of the Jews and the Christians. That one line, aware of the scriptures of the Jews and the Christians. And when he heard the Prophet's experience, this moment is narrated by Toshihiko Aizutsu in his wonderful book, Ethical Terms of the Quran. Quddusun, Quddusun, holy, holy. Verily, this is the very same, and he used the word Namus, angel, that had come unto Moses and Jesus before you. O Prophet, I welcome you, that you truly have been blessed. How I wish, he said, how I wish that I would be alive when they will cast you out of your city. How I wish I was alive when they will put you into troubles and difficulties. And the Prophet was surprised and said, but will my own people do this? He says, yes, this is the way it is. That any man of God who preaches a message of deliverance, of justice, of equality, will be assailed by his own people. And Waraka bin Nawfal passed away about, so it is said, a month later, and the Prophet's journey. So we have here Khadijatul Kubra's incredible role, that one moment of consolation. She had not seen the angel, but she had seen the angel through the eyes of the Prophet and our Salawat. We move to the second of the noble ladies, Sayyidah Fatimah Zahra. And of that marvelous life, what kind of summaries would it be? Would it be apt for a person like me to suggest? I will take only one. Again, I've had the honor of listening to this and hearing it from Professor Karar Sahib himself. So I will try and capture that, that gist, the way in which I heard. History indeed moved forward. The Prophet was rejected by his people. He did migrate. The Prophet's biography is before us. That part is over. Then came some more difficult times upon the family of the Prophet. The first 30 years of the foundation of the community, the Prophet's passing. Here we have the second moment, and the moment of advice and the moment of support. The first caliph has asserted his power, has asserted himself. Once again, history, Saqifa, Bani Sadia, the moment, Ansars, Muhajirin, not the time to get into it. But even as the announcement reaches the streets of Medina and the household of the Prophet, Sayyidah Fatimah Zahra approaches her husband, who is offering prayers on the Jannah. Sayyidah Fatimah Zahra says, "O Ali, surely you have greater right, greater stature, closeness to the Prophet, services to Islam, that this news is coming. The Caliph has been chosen, the Muslim community has chosen his leadership. Surely you should assert yourself, say something, do something." And I'm now using Karar Sahib's words, the Imam is silent. And Sayyidah says it again, insists again. The Imam is silent again. And for a third time, she says, "But isn't it right? Isn't it right to speak for your right? क्या हक के लिए अपना हक मांगना, अपनी आवाज उठाना हक नहीं. It so happened that at that very moment the azan went. And Maulana Kainat Imam al-Muttaqin raised his hand to the sound of the azan and said, Binte Rasool, क्या आप ये चाहती हैं कि ये आवाज हमेशा के लिए बंद हो? Professor Saab concluded this sentence, this moment, मासूम ने मासूम की बात सुनी. मासूम ने मासूम की बात सुनी. सब. When I reflect on the lives of these great women, and when I reflect on their equanimity and nobility and their what I call the moral compass, I can only, with imagination, wonder and admire the executive function that they offer to their. In a recent biography, somebody said, Sayyida Fatimatu Zahra को लोग इस तरह पेश करते हैं जैसे कि घरेलू सी खातून थी, घर के बाहर कभी निकली नहीं, कभी उन्हें और चीज का क्या पता होगा, बस वो एक होम बॉडी, इन्वर्टेड कॉमर्स, एक होम बॉडी थी. वो कहती हैं तुम समझे ही नहीं, उसी होम बॉडी ने वो दो शहजादे पैदा किए जिन्होंने वो बात की जो पूरी इस्लामी तारीख के लिए है. तो भाई ऐसे बहादुर बेटे ऐसी माँ के नहीं आया करते जिसके अंदर में इस किस्म की क्वालिटीज ना. Way of putting things in perspective, and only executive function allows us to understand what she must have done to Hasnain as they grew up, how the two of them must have brought them up. So, the third moment. These three ladies, grandmother, daughter, granddaughter, these three ladies form, to my mind, a kind of a triumvirate of womanhood. These three are exemplars, and Sayyida Zainab's exemplary life and moments are just too many to narrate. And therefore, a moment of choice for this conversation is long before all the other events and her greatness emerged later, long before the streets of Kufa, when the people heard the voice of the words of Ali in the voice of Zainab, long before all that, we take a moment prior to all this. We come to the moment when the Imam decided to turn his Hajj into an Umrah on the 9th of Zilhaj. ये लम्हा सोचने के लायक है. इस्लामी तारीख में कोई मिसाल दूसरी मिलती नहीं कि किसी ने 9 जिलहज हज को उम्रे में तब्दील किया हो सिवाय इमाम से. ये एक something to think about. Once again, modern scholarship has made it very, very clear that assassins garbed in Hajj clothes had entered the Haram, and the Imam had too much respect for the Haram to be able to say, no, this is sanctuary. This is not a place where bloodshed is allowed. First of all, it is not allowed. And look at the Imam's eyes. I mean, kya vision, kya nazar. Suppose a random unknown assassin had done away with the Imam in the Haram. Other than the blasphemy of a murder in the Haram itself, what on earth would have been the consequences? But the Imam made sure that the events would happen the way they would unfold. There would be no doubt about those who did what they did. Who ek will be in the bright light of history. So the Imam takes a decision on the 9th of Zilhaj to not perform Hajj. And he gathers the cattle. And he gathers them. And Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas, very, very close family companion of the Prophet, somebody who was one of the family, advises the Imam and says, sir, ये फैसले के पीछे क्या क्या सोच? कहा मुझे खतरा है, मेरा वक्त आ गया है, मुझे ये गुफ्तगू कहीं और, ये कुर्बानी कहीं और, ये हज की सादत अब यहाँ नहीं, अब कहीं और. Hazrat Ibn Abbas says, but sir, the women and the children, you are dividing them. No, Abbas, they must. And as this conversation was going, Sayyidah Zainab's voice comes from the side. She was listening from the side. Here it is, the third point. Ibn Abbas, क्या भाई से बहन को जुदा करना चाहते हैं? ये बहन को, यानी imagine Karbala happening without the women. Imagine the family not being there. We were not living at a time of mass communication. Who would have known? How would the story have known? Modern poets have put it very well. The more the government of the time tried to suppress the events of Karbala, the more the events of Karbala were narrated by the very acts they did to suppress. वो समझते थे कि हम खानदान को जिल्लत के साथ एक से जगह से दूसरी जगह ले जाएंगे तो सबको पता चलेगा कि हमारी ताकत कितनी. They forgot that everybody would now know the events. So of that time from Karbala unto Damascus, the entire journey turned into not a suppression of the event, but the broadcast of the event. ये भी हमारे दौर का कमाल है. Somebody said about Sayyidah Zainab, a rare compliment. ये modern times के young लोग ही कर सकते हैं. She says she was the first citizen journalist of the time. Okay, that's an odd one. Would have never fitted those two words together, but then why not? Yeah. Sayyidah Zainab was the one who at every point spoke to the people who saw them that we are the family of the Prophet. There, in that one thing, क्या तुम भाई को, बहन को भाई से जुदा करना चाहते हो? Executive function, motherhood, fatherhood, taking care, building a young life, building it to a point where in adulthood they would be at another level. I began today by saying it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Someday in society we will recognize that mothers who think that the early years of childhood are not worth their attention and something else is, soon discover that something else seems to bite back once again. It turns out that the kinds of attention that the growing child demands due to needs left unfulfilled are far onerous than that generosity of time and attention that child demands. I come to the concluding part of today, and it is an honor and privilege to speak. It's very interesting. Allama Talib Jawhari Sahib couldn't possibly have known that I'm going to speak about executive function or that this conversation would fit them, but somehow it does. हुसैन का बड़ा चहीता बेटा थे. अकबर की मां का नाम उम्मे लैला है. अक्सर ऐसा होता, अकबर पैदा हुए, अकबर झूले में हैं रात के वक्त, अक्सर आधी रात को उम्मे लैला की आंख खुलती तो देखती कि कोई साया झूले पर झुका हुआ है घबरा कर पुकारती, ये कौन है मेरे अकबर के झूले के पास। तो उधर से आवाज आती, उम्मे लैला आहिस्ता बोलो, मैं हुसैन हूँ। उम्मे लैला आहिस्ता बोलो, मैं हुसैन हूँ। उम्मे लैला कहती, आका आधी रात वो झूले के करीब क्या कर रहे हैं। हुसैन अजीब सा जवाब दे देते, कहते हैं उम्मे लैला मैं क्या करूँ, सोने की कोशिश करता हूं लेकिन अकबर की मोहब्बत मुझे सोने नहीं देती। अब आप पहचान गए हैं अकबर। खुदा की कसम मक्तल में ये जुमले मौजूद हैं, इतना लाडला बेटा कि अगर बेटे ने अनार की फरमाइश कर दी और अनार का मौसम नहीं तो हाथ बढ़ाकर जन्नत से अनार ले आए। हुसैन ने अकबर की किसी फरमाइश को कभी भी रोक नहीं दिया। जब आते हैं अकबर आए और आने के बाद दोनों हाथ जोड़े और कहा, मौला मुझे जंग की इजाजत अता कीजिए, मुझे जंग की इजाजत अता कीजिए। तो हुसैन सा बाप हो और अकबर सा बेटा, मौला मुझे जंग की इजाजत दीजिए। अकबर ने इजाजत मांगी, पर नजरा मिल ले रहा आसे ही इलाकद में ही। हुसैन ने नजर की उसके सर से लेके उसके पैर तक। हुसैन मुश्किल में है। हुसैन ने एक ठंडी सांस ली, सर से पांव तक अकबर को देखा और कहने लगे, अकबर काश तुम्हारे पास तुम जैसा कोई बेटा होता और वो तुमसे मरने की इजाजत मांगे, तो मैं देखता कि किस दिल से इजाजत देते हो। अकबर तुम्हें इजाजत दी, पलट आए। बस अकबर दोबारा आए, मैं इस तफसील में नहीं जाऊंगा। अकबर दोबारा आए, अब जबान से इजाजत नहीं मांगी, अपना बंधा हुआ हाथ बाबा को दिखाया और अपना सर हुसैन के कदमों में रख दिया। सर का रखना था कि हुसैन घबरा कर खड़े हो गए। एक मर्तबा अकबर का शाना थामा और उठाया, सीने से लगाया और कहा, बेटे अब ये ना करना, अरे तेरी तो सूरत नाना के मुशाबे। बेटा अकबर अब आइंदा ऐसा ना करना। मेरे नाना के चेहरे से मुशाबा है। जाओ अकबर, मैंने तुम्हें इजाजत दी। जब अकबर खुश होकर पलट रहे हैं तो इतने में पुकार कर हुसैन ने कहा, अकबर मैंने तो इजाजत दे दी, लेकिन सुनो, तुम्हें पाला है तुम्हारी फूफी ने, फूफी से भी इजाजत ले। अकबर आते हैं शहजादी जैनब के खेमे में इजाजत के लिए। सारी बीबियां अकबर को घेर कर खड़ी हुई हैं। अकबर को रुखसत की इजाजत मिली, कैसे मिली? बीबियों की तरफ से। लेकिन देखो, जैसे ही अकबर आए, शहजादी जैनब ने खेमे में सारी बीवियों को घेर लिया, अपने बाल खोल दिए और कहा, अकबर अरहम गुर्बतना, अकबर हमारी गुर्बत पर रहम खाओ, अकबर हमारी मुसीबत पर रहम खाओ, अकबर परेशानी पर रहम खाओ। रावी कहता है कि खेमे का पर्दा जब अकबर के ने निकलना चाहा तो खेमे का पर्दा 18 मरतबा उठा और 18 मरतबा गिरा। मेरे अजीजों दोस्तों, बस ये जुमला हदिया करता हूँ। खेमे का पर्दा जब अकबर निकला तो चाह रहे थे कि जैनब के खेमे से 18 मरतबा उठा, 18 मरतबा गिरा। रावी कहता है जब अकबर निकलना चाहते थे तो किसी ने दामन पकड़ के खींचा, किसी ने दामन पकड़ कर खींचा। रावी को नहीं मालूम किसने, मुझे नहीं मालूम। सारा मकतल खामोश है, वो कौन था जिसने अकबर का दामन पकड़ कर खींचा। लेकिन मैं एक बात जानता हूं कि अगर किसी बड़े ने रोका हो तो शाना अकबर, तो शाना पकड़ कर रोका होता। यह अकबर की छोटी सी बहन थी, ये सकीना थी। जब अकबर निकलना चाहते थे तो सकीना दामन पकड़ लेती थी कि भैया अकबर अब किसके सहारे पर सकीना को छोड़कर जा? सदैव सही।
खून अकबर का कलेजा हो गया, खून अकबर का कलेजा हो गया। नौजवानी आए ये क्या हो गया, खून अकबर का कलेजा हो गया। नौजवानी हाय ये क्या हो गया, सीने अकबर पजबर छी लगी, सीने अकबर पजबर छी लगी, कल्बे मादर पारा पारा हो गया, खून अकबर का कलेजा हो गया। रोई लैला इस तरह दिल थाम कर, रोई लैला इस तरह दिल थाम कर, जो गिरा सूबो दरिया हो गया, खाक में अरमान मिलकर रह गए, खाक में अरमान मिलकर रह गए, ख्वाब साक बर का सेहरा हो गया, खून अकबर का कलेजा हो गया। ढूंढते हैं शाह यूं लाशे पे सर, ढूंढते हैं शाह यूं लाशे पे सर, जैसे मातल में अंधेरा हो गया, गिर पड़े घोड़े से अकबर खाक पर, गिर पड़े घोड़े से अकबर खाक पर, जब जिगर के पार नेज़ा हो गया, खून अकबर का कलेजा हो गया, रन से लाए शाह जब लाशे जवां, रन से लाए शाह जब लाशे जवां, हश्र एक खैमे में बर्पा हो गया, दुश्मनों में रह गए तन्हा हुसैन, दुश्मनों में रह गए तन्हा हुसैन, कत्ल पीरी का सहारा हो गया, खून अकबर का कलेजा हो गया, अब न लेने आएगा सुगरा कोई, अब न लेने आएगा, अकबर हक प्यारा हो गया, खून अकबर का कलेजा हो गया, मिल गई शोहरत मुजाहिद आपको, इस कदर मकबूल नौहा हो गया, खून अकबर का कलेजा हो गया, नौजवानी हाय ये क्या हो गया।
Yeah. Go on.
Hello, am I audible? Thank you sir, for asking something that we have listened. For those of you who don't know me, I'm frequently write poetry, so if this is slightly unconventional, just bear with me. So I'm laugh about it too. So, dear God, it is ironic that I often despair to you, the one who already given me everything. Thank you for blessing us with sound mind and intellect, so that we may search libraries and seeds of knowledge, only to realize we truly know nothing. Please grant comfort to those with troubled minds and easy things, those suffering mental illnesses, and give them support in the form of loved ones, their family and family. Please grant us strength to advocate for empathy in our society, so that we may give support and love to all those suffering in silence. Please give us the ability to use our knowledge and our minds which you have gifted us with to create a better world, rather than advocate for hate and destruction. And we pray for all those lost, depressed, or scared to find their way back to your light. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. That is beautiful. I'd like you to recite the devotion 3 times before and after this dua. Ya Allah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala محمد وآل محمد. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Ghaffar, Ya Ghafur, Ya Hayya, Ya Qayyum. If you give me wealth, do not take away my happiness. If you give me strength and might, do not take my intelligence away. If you give me wisdom, do not take away my modesty. If you give me honor and dignity, do not take away my humility. If you give me authority and status, do not take away my magnanimity. If you give me destitute poverty and ill health, do not take away my hope, faith, and obedience. Lastly, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, please bestow upon me the nature and disposition of humbleness, gratitude, patience, endurance, compassion, and unwavering strength of faith and devotion, so that I may accept in a befitting manner the divine destiny and fate that you have carved for me. Amen. Summa. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum ya Nabi Allah. Assalamu alaikum ya Shafi al-Muslimin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum ya Amir al-Mu'minin wa ibn Sayyid al-Wasiin. Assalamu alaikum ya ibn Fatimah al-Zahra, Sayyidat an-Nisa' al-Alamin. Assalamu alaikum ya ibn Khadijah al-Kubra, al-Mu'minin wal-Mu'minat. Assalamu ala Hussein wa ala Ali ibn Hussein وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وأنصار الحسين خصوصا سيدي مولاي أبو الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين سقاء يتيمان نشر كربلاء. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. आकाए गरीबान मौलाए बेकसान बादशाह खुरासान तामिनाने यतीमान. अस्सलामु अलैका या मुगीस अश्शियत व सवार अस्सुल्तान अबुल हसन या अली इब्न मूसा अय्युहर रज़ा व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुह. अस्सलामु अलैका या साहिबत ज़मान Alaman, alaman, alaman min fitnatil zaman. Assalamu alayka ya Khalifatul Rahman. Assalamu alayka ya Imam al-Insijan. Ajjalallahu ta'ala farjak. Wasalallahu makhrajakum saburak. Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Nare takbir, Allahu Akbar. Nare risalat, Ya Rasulullah. Nare Haidari, Ya Ali. Husainiyat, Zindabad.